Hi, I'm Alan,
And I'm Russell.
and this is Popculture Pontification Spoilercast, where we are planning to discuss in detail and length the new now, X-Men movie, X-Men Apocalypse.
I feel like next week it's still going to be the new X-Men movie. There's not going to be another one out between now and then.
What if somebody listens to this like 2 years from now? What if it's 2018 and they're like, oh, what's this? Brilliant podcast. And they're going to come back and look through. New? Oh, how hilarious. This was released 2 years ago.
You fools.
You fool. Why did you date this in such a fashion?
Well, screw that guy.
Yeah, if you're that guy, go away.
Yeah.
Stop listening.
Unless you're the president.
If it is,
If this is President Trump.
this is President Trump, you
Please
can
accept
still...
our grovelling apologies.
No, you can still fuck off. But yeah, if it is after June 3rd, 2018, and you're listening to this, what are you doing? This is like 2 years old. Get out of here.
It's not June 3rd.
I know, I just made a date up.
Okay. So, it took us about 3 seconds to get off topic.
Pretty stock standard stuff. All right, let's re-rail instead of derail and get back on topic of talking about X-Men Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Russell, go ahead. Give us the lowdown.
Oh, the gist. Okay, so, you know the X-Men, right?
I am aware of them, yes.
Mutant superheroes.
Correct.
You know how there was that one set in the 60s with Kevin Bacon as the bad guy?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was that one set in the 70s.
Yep.
And
With Magneto as the bad
Magneto
Michael
as the bad
Fassbender, yes.
he didn't start out as the bad guy.
He turned into
That guy was Peter Dinklage at the start.
yes.
Well, now there's one in the 80s, and Oscar Isaac is the bad guy.
Otherwise known as Poe Dameron.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a bad guy.
he is.
It looks like he's wearing...
Barely recognizable.
Looks like he's wearing a
covered in
rubber
makeup.
mask the entire movie.
He plays Apocalypse.
Although he is never called as such in the
Yes.
movie. Yes.
No, he has some sort of ancient Egyptian name.
Yeah, Abensour.
Yeah.
Something Abensour.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. I'm not an expert on Apocalypse, so I can't really say much about how they portrayed his character. But I am more of an expert on the X-Men themselves.
Well, what I can tell you about how they portrayed his character is that he is the first mutant.
So they say.
So they
Yes.
say. And we are introduced to him in ancient Egypt, where he's like the pharaoh and is being worshipped by all the
Yes.
little people.
The lesser people.
And he has these 4 bodyguards who are escorting him into a pyramid.
Yep.
Where he's going to transfer his consciousness into a new being.
Yes.
In
Ancient
order to-
Egyptian Wolverine.
Yeah, in
'Cause
order
he's got
to extend his life
Yes.
indefinitely.
Because he's got a healing factor.
See, I didn't notice that because when they started cutting him open with that scalpel, I looked away because that sort of stuff creeps me out. So I didn't realize that that's where he got his healing factor from.
Oh, did you not?
No.
Did you, when you looked back, were they on to the next bit?
Well, I looked back and the guy was there, and I figured that they just cut him on the other side. That's why I couldn't see it.
No. They cut him open and he healed. I don't know why he needed a demonstration of the fact that Poe Dameron had a healing factor.
Yeah, I don't know.
But he does.
Anyway.
Anyway. Although, fun
there's-
fact, healing factor does not make you immortal in the X-Men universe. It just really extends your lifespan.
Right.
Wolverine still ages.
Yes.
He eventually will die of
Very
old
slowly.
age.
Just like Hugh Jackman.
Correct.
I didn't mean that to sound like I was waiting
Just
for
like Hugh
Jackman's
Jackman.
death.
One day he'll die and my plan will be complete.
I meant that he seems to age very slowly.
Yes, he does.
So it goes badly for Apocalypse. There's like a uprising against him, and we see that his 4 bodyguards have mutant powers of their own.
Yes.
And unfortunately for him, they can't prevent him being buried underground for
Now,
thousands of years.
What's always confused me is that it does Apocalypse's 4 horsemen who protect him as such. They've not always been mutants. Every now and then he'll just find. Well, actually, no, I can't really back that up. I feel like they're not always mutants. But what always confused me is that way back in the day, he was the only mutant.
Yeah.
Like, he was an outlier. He was like the weird, statistical outlier, I suppose is what I'm saying. and all of a sudden he just found 4 more mutants and turned them into his horsemen.
Well, I guess he does. He seems to have arbitrary godlike power.
Yes. It's also said that even though he was the first mutant, he's also been transferring from mutant to mutant to mutant to mutant and gathering their powers as they go along. So it's a bit logically inconsistent.
But I guess somewhere along the line, maybe he gained the power to give other people powers, like a genie.
Like an unlock mutants. Latent mutant genes, which is something I think an X-Men or 2 have got that ability of. The other thing that really confused me is the way they took down Apocalypse is that they caught him halfway between his transference cycle, and then they pretty much collapsed the pyramid on top of him, sort of locking him away while he was still sort of not fully formed, all that sort of stuff. And how he's worshipped as a god, how did those 4 guys, the 4 guards or whatever, manage to build this pyramid in such a way that like two big rocks can take down the entire pyramid?
It was surely like a Rube Goldberg machine with the, like, dominoes, knock the fishbowl off, and
surely somewhere some architect along the line would have like, wait a minute, why is this ramp here next to all these load-bearing pillars?
Why are there these giant stones positioned at the top of these slides
that would
demolish the entire pyramid?
Oh, it seems... Come on, guys. This is why we have drafts.
Yeah. I suppose they may have had those guys on board.
It's true.
If Apocalypse had the power to control people's minds, though, that never would have happened.
That's true. But the one thing I do know about Apocalypse is that he isn't just mutant. He doesn't just have mutant powers. And, God, I could be wrong here. I haven't done my research at all. He also has access to, like, ancient technology. Like alien tech.
Right.
Which is what allows him to constantly resurrect as such in the comic books. Which they sort of touched on slightly in regards to the, like the big thing at the top of the pyramid that captured the sun's rays and sort of had sort of circuitry coming down through all the rocks, and that is what initiated the transformation. But I'm by no means an expert on Apocalypse, so I can't really say much more than that.
Yeah. So the way that comes to the X-Men's attention is that in the 1980s, 83, I think the date said.
Sure.
In modern day Cairo, where he's been buried under, he awakens when Moira McTaggart
fucks up,
accidentally exposes his machine to sunlight, and
which seems to be what activates it.
Yeah. And then
the process is complete. He wakes up in the new body. He
wakes up in his new body,
which has been sustained by its healing factor. I assume.
It hasn't eaten or.
It hasn't eaten. Yeah, it seems he would have wasted away. Maybe like enough of his. Maybe he's being sustained by the machine because it was halfway through the thing. Whatever. It was very skimmed over.
It doesn't matter. And then he wakes up and decides to wreck everybody's shit.
Yeah, he's like, look at all these humans and their machines. This isn't the way it should be. Yeah. Even though 90% of my worshippers in ancient Egypt were human.
Yeah.
I'm just going to kill everyone.
Yeah.
There's a couple of plot holes.
I feel like we've got enough of a framework to now extrapolate out.
Yes.
Because the rest of the plot didn't really make any sense.
It's essentially him going around, gathering up 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and then trying to figure out a way to destroy all humans.
Yeah,
and all life.
To kill all humans.
To kill all humans.
He was basically Bender from ancient Egypt.
To kill all humans and most mutants. And he's like, whoever survives, they're my new worshippers, and I will blah, 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 blah. But traditionally, he just tries to kill humans and then keep the mutants as like his slaves, basically.
But my first issue is he says that he wants to gather the 4 strongest mutants he can find. But he seems to literally grab the first 4, or the first 3 people he can find, and then he seeks out Magneto.
Yes, which doesn't make any sense because nobody knows who or where he is.
Yeah.
All right. So first he in Cairo, he grabs Storm, a street rat, played by some 25-year-old who's playing it like a 15-year-old.
Yes.
Which doesn't make any sense because Storm grew up in like Africa.
Well, Egypt is in Africa.
Well, yeah, but she was never. I don't think she's not Egyptian. She's African.
Right.
So she traditionally grew up on the streets of Africa, of some Africa.
South Africa?
South Africa, possibly. I'm
Africa's
not sure.
a whole continent.
Africa. Yeah, I know Africa's a whole continent.
Yeah.
She's definitely from Africa. You know, like
Right.
stereotypical Africa. I don't know where exactly. Johannesburg. I don't fucking know. I haven't looked this up. But she's not in Egypt. She doesn't grow up in Egypt. I can tell you that for sure. Where she is like occasionally worshipped as a goddess, as such.
Because of
her
her
weather powers. Yes.
Yeah, makes sense.
But what she's doing in Cairo, I can't tell you.
It's like a Aladdin, basically.
Yeah. Except not good. She's just a thief.
Well, yeah.
She's not a diamond in the rough.
No. Well, she kind of is.
She kind of is.
She ends up being an X-Men.
It's
X-Man.
true. An X-Man.
X-person.
It sounds like she's dead.
She's dead. No, she doesn't die. Spoilers.
She's quite alive.
Yeah.
But we do see some remnants of the 80s Storm. In the fact that in the 80s they thought it would be super wicked cool if Storm had a mohawk. So she was given a mohawk in like the 80s/90s. I'm not sure exactly when.
Yeah.
So she's got a mohawk in this, which is pretty cool. And and then they bugger off to like where did they go? Where was like the place in which they found Psylocke?
Somewhere in Europe. I think
Somewhere in Europe.
There was a guy called Caliban there who always talked about himself in the third person.
So Apocalypse grants...
Caliban is going to the bathroom.
Yeah, he speaks about him in the third person. Caliban has a urinary tract infection. So he like, instead of granting Storm powers, he just jacks her powers up to like 11.
Well, when we first meet her, her powers seem to be like 1.
Yeah, she's like a little gust
fraction.
of wind.
Yeah.
Which is not how it works. Storm always had control over the elements.
Yeah. Then we meet Psylocke, who has almost no characterization.
No, she's
at all.
basically just a ninja.
Yeah. And she reveals the power to create like an energy sword.
Yeah,
and
which
she holds Apocalypse up with it.
Which is not... no.
And then his gift to her is to make it into a slightly larger energy sword.
It's basically more powerful, I think. He's just granting more power, is what he do. He's what he does, as far as I can tell. But Psylocke's sword, or whatever, is like a psychic weapon. She like stabs people in the heads with it, and then she fucks around with them mentally. She's like partially psychic. It's not a cutty thing.
Right.
Or at least to my knowledge, it's not. That's why she carries around the katana to cut through stuff.
Okay.
And she's got a little dagger that she stabs people in the head with and fucks around with them.
See, I don't know anything about her from the comics or any other media. But she had no character or motivation at all.
Yeah, she was just... Comes in, cuts something, buggers off again.
Yeah. And I'm jumping ahead later in the movie now, but it's related to her powers. She has like an energy whip when she fights Beast.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
She like whips through a concrete block and like slices it like a laser or something.
Yeah, like nothing.
And then she wraps it around Beast's neck.
And it's trying to kill him.
And it's just like strangling him.
Just choking him
It
out.
doesn't slice through his neck.
It's logically inconsistent. I believe she can manipulate her psychic energy, which is what creates the blade to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense. Also, everybody else who got turned into one of the horsemen of the apocalypse got like a cool armor and stuff.
And he's like, and now you will dress like a dominatrix.
She's just got like a slinky spandex outfit.
Yeah.
Instead of like the cool armor that everybody else got.
Yeah, and
even
like a bikini bottom and knee-high boots.
Yeah, even like Storm got a cool sort of like chest plate made of metal and stuff.
Yeah, and a little cape.
So yeah, she was clearly just there to be the sex object.
Yeah.
Which was a little disappointing. But yeah, so the third horseman that she finds, I don't know how Storm goes like, oh, I know where to find mutants, and then just goes to Eastern Europe or whatever and finds like this little bunker in which is basically used like an underground sort of mutant railroad. Oh
yes, that's right. But we have previously met the third horseman, Angel.
Yes.
Earlier in the movie, he has a scene where he has to...
He's a prisoner.
Do battle in like an underground fighting
cage
ring
fighting, yeah.
against Nightcrawler.
Yes.
And
although we see him fighting
Blob.
the Blob, yeah.
Well, we see the Blob getting dragged out of the cage.
Yes. He's trapped there. He's coerced into fighting.
Yeah.
At which point, like, if they don't fight, they get shot and killed.
Yeah.
And they drag Nightcrawler in, who all of a sudden, for some reason, can't teleport past, like, a Faraday cage.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Honestly,
at this point, I gave up, because it's just the plot line of the X-Men movies makes no fucking sense now at this point. Because Angel was in X-Men 3.
Yeah.
And now he's in Eastern Europe as a prisoner.
Days of Future Past, they rewrote everything.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not I don't know what... It doesn't make logical sense. Because even if they change the past, it's the 80s. He shouldn't be, like, around at this age.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
You know, he was in the X-Men franchise. He was born in the 80s. Or maybe in the 90s.
Yeah, so that he could be a young adult.
In the 2000s, yeah. So... the whole plotline is just a hot fucking mess.
Oh, yeah.
And it upset me. The entire movie. Like, if they were just like, okay, we've reset things, so now different things are happening to the mutants as they're around.
Yeah.
Then I'd be fine with that. But it's just now, like, people are born 20 years before they're supposed to be born. And,
yeah.
Like, spoiler alert, Mystique is Nightcrawler's mother. So,
in the comics?
In everything. She's his mum.
Right.
And that doesn't make a lick of fucking sense. Because, you know...
In X2, didn't they have, like, a romantic subplot? Or was
that
Nightcrawler and Storm?
No. I don't know. Nightcrawler and Mystique in X2 had a very brief moment of, like...
Oh, you have weird skin.
No.
Me too.
No, we both have blue skin. That's crazy. No. They have a brief moment where he's like, I hear you can disguise yourself, even the voice. And she goes, even the voice. Yeah. And then he's like, why don't you hide from them? She's like, because I shouldn't. And he's like, that's a good point.
Yeah. That movie was great. We're not talking about
that. But we do, for instance, see Nightcrawler's father in the first X-Men movie. X-Men First Class. Do you remember the teleporting red demon guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Nightcrawler's dad.
Okay.
So, yeah. I suppose it's like, 20 years after the fact? And Mystique went buggered off with those guys. Mm-hmm. But didn't he die? I don't remember.
I don't remember First Class. Which became apparent when I didn't know who... Like, I know who Moira McTaggart is from the cartoon... But I didn't remember her from First Class at all. I forgot that she was a character in the movie.
That's true. She was like, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, Moira McTaggart. I was like, okay. Who was she again?
She was so pointless in the movie.
She didn't have much of a role, yes. She was dressed up like an X-Men. I was like, you're not an X-Men.
What are you going to do? You don't even have a gun.
No, it's true. All right, but we're getting off track.
Yeah.
Despite the crazy plotline, the fact remains that Angel, in a fight with Nightcrawler in this cage that they're forced to do, gets his wing all sorts of fucked up.
Yeah.
And he can't really fly or whatever. So somehow they find him.
Yeah. Well, Storm knows where to find mutants.
Apparently. So her little known powers, she can find weird mutants occasionally. Plot sensitive mutants. And they... go find him, and his wing's all fucked up. So they're like, nah, fuck this guy. He can't do shit. And Apocalypse is like, oh, can't he? And then proceeds to rip all of his wings out instead of just fixing them. And gave him
ruining
his torso. It looked very painful.
Yeah.
And giving him metal wings, turning him into Archangel.
Did you, by chance, recognize the song playing during that scene?
No.
It's a song off Metallica's first album, entitled The Four Horsemen.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well done.
But that was a cute touch.
The way it happens in the comic books is that Angel gets his wings destroyed, like completely removed, which is touched on in X-Men 3 or 2 or something, where he cuts off his own wings when he's a kid and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. For some reason, he grows them back, so it shouldn't be an issue at this point.
Yeah.
But anyway, in the comic books, his wings get destroyed and he can't fly anymore. And the reason why he becomes one of the Four Horsemen is that Apocalypse grants him his wings back again and corrupts him because of his desire to fly, and blah, 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 so on and so forth. But this just seemed rather arbitrary.
Yeah.
And just like a reason.
Like, you don't need those wings. Here, I'll give you fucking metal wings.
To be fair, they were pretty badass metal wings.
But it seems like they wouldn't be very good at flying because they'd be so heavy.
Well, they're in the comic books. They're made of adamantium, which is like a very light,
okay.
light-ish metal. Like titanium is light.
Is it? I have no idea.
Titanium's light, yes.
Okay.
And he gets these adamantine wings, which lets him cut through pretty much everything, and throw out little feathered knives that can cut in like daggers and all that sort of stuff. And as soon as he gets his wings, he immediately knows how to throw them about the place and shoot off these little daggers, which is shown once more and then never again.
Yeah. Completely ineffectively. And he's just shown to be like a bitch for the rest of the movie. Well, he did. I don't even know if he had any lines after the scene with Nightcrawler.
No, I don't think he did. He tells like Apocalypse to fuck off.
Yeah.
And then he like becomes one of the Horsemen, and then he never says anything.
No, he's just like, now I'm a mini boss.
And then he and Nightcrawler have a rematch. Nightcrawler traps him in his like metal cage of like rebar, and then he dies.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Well, you see, his wings can't penetrate a Faraday cage.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. The fourth Horseman is Magneto.
Yes.
Who is one of the primary characters of this series.
Yes. Yep.
And we see him, he's trying to live a life incognito because of his involvement in the events of the earlier movies.
Killing many people.
Yeah. Threatening to assassinate the president. The entire cabinet. So he's in Poland, his native land, I believe.
Yes, I believe so.
Living with his new wife and daughter and working at a steel mill.
Mm-hmm. Appropriate.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he uses his powers to save a man from being crushed under a metal thing.
Which happens from the tremor of Apocalypse escaping his sort of like underground business.
Yeah.
Teleportation. His little teleportation ball that he can do. Which for some reason, first time he uses it, creates tremors all over the world, and then every subsequent time he uses it, it doesn't.
Yeah.
All right.
Magneto then, somebody reports on him to the secret police.
Yes. Well, because he's like a wanted criminal.
Well, yeah, he's like one of the most wanted people in the world.
Yes.
And the police come to...
They sort of come to his house to arrest him, but they take his daughter, who's like got this animal thing.
Yeah, she's showing the first signs of some sort of mutant powers.
Yeah, she can befriend animals. Yeah.
Crows to attack.
It was like crows and hawks, all sorts of animals,
birds,
and owls and birds of prey. Like when he goes, all right, just let go of my daughter, I'll come with you, so on and so forth. She like goes, no, I won't let you take my dad. Like your Magneto's parents were taken from him, and then sends all these animals to attack him. At which point, one of the guys who's got a wooden bow and arrow, probably a pretty effective weapon against Magneto,
shoots her in the spine.
And the arrow. And the guy wasn't even like, didn't have the bow like drawn super tight.
Yeah.
It was a real loose arrow and just completely punctured through his daughter and killed his wife.
Oh, is that what happened? Because I heard them saying later that his wife had been killed.
Yeah.
And I thought it was like a subtle thing that like the secret police had executed her to cover up what had happened.
Because she's like holding the daughter to her chest.
Yeah.
And then the arrow goes into the daughter. And I interpreted it as the arrow going completely through the daughter and into the mother and killing her.
That's probably more on this movie's level. But yeah, he was using like a short bow and he just was like holding it
just
loosely at his hips
casually.
And it just like plonked. It should have just like fallen out of the end onto the ground.
Yeah.
Instead it was punctured through two people's bodies.
It should have been him having drawn it all the way back fully to like try and shoot a bird or something.
Yeah.
and then he gets attacked by a bird, and then it goes loose, and
Yeah.
then it would have been more acceptable for it to have accidentally gone through it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
so
Magneto
Magneto,
flips out and massacres everybody,
yeah, with like this, the only bit of metal that he has available.
which is his parents'
is-
locket.
Yes. So pretty creepy.
Yeah.
Sends his locket around, zipping through people's necks.
In this vulnerable emotional state, he's approached by Apocalypse,
Mm-hmm.
who offers him the chance for revenge on the entire world.
Yes, and sort of Jack's his power takes him to Auschwitz, where he was like captured and tortured as a child.
Yeah, and
That
his
was
parents had taken
real
him.
dark.
Yeah, it was. I felt like that was a bit. It wasn't a very respectful way to treat the Holocaust.
No,
Because Magneto just like demolishes Auschwitz with his mutant powers.
which is probably, from my point of view, something that should have already been done. Like,
Well,
it's a
it's-
horrible things happened there. Why were they left it standing?
This is important to remember.
I guess so, but it's also horrible things were done there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Apocalypse jacks his powers up
Yeah.
to the levels of which his powers are by himself in the comic books. Because Magneto is one of the most powerful mutants in the comic books, even before he's ever been corrupted by Apocalypse, where he can just like pretty much destroy the world whenever he wants by fucking up the magnetic field of the Earth, which is why he's so terrifying to like the general populace.
Well, he could just like strip away the protection we have from solar radiation.
Yeah,
and it all, like,
pretty
burn
much.
to death.
And at one point in the comic books, he like basically leaves the Earth by generating this enormous, or pulling down this enormous iron asteroid from the like the Kuiper belt or whatever, and then just creating this city on top of this asteroid belt that he just keeps levitating above the Earth with his magnetic powers constantly.
When he's asleep.
And now he's good enough that he can just keep it rocking.
Okay, fair enough.
But he actually has another daughter called Polaris, I believe her name is. But she has magnetic powers like him. And then she's not, like, she can't control birds and animals and stuff.
Right.
Anyway, that's not important.
Scarlet Witch's daughter as well.
That's his daughter, yeah. That's Pietro's sister. Yeah, Quicksilver's sister.
The reason we've been talking about Apocalypse searching for the Horsemen for
Horsemen,
so
yeah.
long is because it was literally 2/3 of the movie.
It was literally 2/3 of the movie, yeah.
And in the meantime, the heroes, the X-Men,
Just
have
really
nothing
faffing.
to
They're
do
just faffing about.
because they don't know what's going on. They have nowhere to find out, and they just sort of hang out.
Yeah, we get introduced to the new characters, essentially. That 2/3 of the movie while he's going around going, you seem to be moderately powerful, you're one of my horsemen now.
Yeah.
Completely arbitrarily for the hundreds of thousands of mutants that are on the planet.
You can fly. That's way better than like the guy who can shoot lasers out of his chest.
It's true, yes.
Yeah.
We get introduced to Scott Summers
Yeah.
and the new Jean Grey.
Yeah.
And
Who I cannot separate from Sansa Stark because this is the same actress. Sophie
it's a
Turner.
little bit easier for me because I don't watch Game of Thrones that much.
Yeah.
And the new Nightcrawler and so on and so forth. And they're the new crew, such as it is. And
They're almost like a sort of Young Mutants spin-off team at this stage.
that's true. I think they were going for the original X-Men.
Yeah.
Because the original X-Men were the...
Iceman.
They don't have Iceman. The original X-Men were pretty much this team. They had the Beast, they had Beast, and they had Cyclops, and they had Jean Grey, or Marvel Girl, I believe her name was back in the day.
Yeah. Storm.
And no Storm. Yeah. And they had Angel, and they had Iceman. That was the original lineup. So all the players are there, except for Bobby Drake.
Yeah.
Who was like the youngest of them. He was like the kid who rolled around
so
with
he
them.
might come along later.
Unlikely. Unless they just arbitrarily decide that he needs to have been born about 20 years before he's supposed to have been.
Well, they probably will.
Yeah.
They do for everyone else.
They're playing real fast and loose, and it's really aggravating with the timeline.
So, Apocalypse has got his crew together.
Before we move on to that,
Yeah.
this is a nitpicky point of mine, and it really shits me off in almost every X-Men movie they've ever made that has involved Cyclops.
We're going to talk about Cyclops.
We're going to talk about Cyclops.
Okay.
I have no problems with him not being able to control his eye beams or his beams being stopped by like ruby quartz, because that's all canon. That's all fine.
Okay. Why would you have a problem with that?
I don't know, because I'm just telling the stuff I don't have a problem with until I get to the point that I do have a problem with. It is canon. It is hard canon that he has these eye beams that project force.
Yeah.
Not cutting, not heat, not laser beams. They project force. He can like punch through a 1/4-inch plate of steel with these beams. They're not heat. They don't set things on fire. They just punch through stuff.
Maybe it's the friction.
No, it's not. No.
Okay.
Because every time they show him using his eye beams on something, it sets that stuff on fire.
Yeah.
And it aggravates me because
I
that's
heard
not
you, like,
what it does.
growling in the cinema every time it happens.
He sets a tree on fire.
Yeah.
You don't set a tree on fire when you hit it with an axe.
Professor X's favorite tree.
Professor X's favorite tree, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just a little thing, and I'm sure it's something that 99% of the people who watch the movie wouldn't care about.
I don't care.
But it really shits me off. Because that's his whole tie thing. Like, his brother and him, and, like, his other brother that is around somewhere. Mm-hmm. They all have connection to this sort of, like, extraplanar dimension that is just force.
Right.
And that is what they project. Like, they like, Havoc blasts things with his hands. Mm-hmm. And it's the same beams that come out of Cyclops' eye. It's the same stuff. It's the same force.
Seems like way better than having it come out of your eyes.
Yes. But traditionally...
Havoc can look at things that he doesn't want to destroy.
That's true. But yeah, he can just, like, with his hands. But the thing is, their powers are useless against each other. Because their skin, like, negates it.
Right.
That's why Cyclops can close his eyes and his eyelids is enough to stop it.
Oh, and he doesn't want to burn the front of his head off.
Blow the front of his head off, yeah. So, like, if Havoc decides... Shut up, Russell. So, like, if Havoc decided to shoot Cyclops with his hand beams, it'd just hit him and it'd be like, no, whatever.
Okay.
That's, like, part of his mutant dealio.
Right.
But if it's heat generated, Russell, that's not how it works, is it?
Okay, that's enough.
All right, fine. I've had my say.
So, Apocalypse has got his crew together.
Yes.
And they go and kidnap Charles.
Yes. And Havoc attempts to stop them.
Yeah. Much
to Beast telling him no, because right behind where Havoc and the line of sight between Havoc and where they're standing, right behind it is a jet engine.
Yeah.
Of the new X-Men plane that he's building. And they disappear. Havoc shoots right through where they were, blows through the door behind it, and even though he just projects force...
detonates the engine.
Detonates the plane and the engine and the fuel tanks and everything around there.
Havoc dies off screen.
Or maybe. We don't know.
And Quicksilver shows up to save the day.
To be the most interesting character in this movie, just like he was the most interesting character in the previous one.
Yeah, even though he was only in that one for about 3 minutes.
It's true. Yeah. Like, the explosion is happening and all of a sudden, everything slows down.
Yeah.
And then we hear, what is it, like Wham playing or something?
No, it's
Rush.
Sweet Dreams.
It's Rush, I think it is.
I thought it was Eurythmics.
I don't know. I'm not that good with that sort of stuff. Anyway, he shows up to like this music and he's like, "Oh, what's going on?"
Yeah.
And then he just zips off and like goes down and sees the explosion happening and then just in the coolest scene in the entire movie.
Yeah.
Like zips around and pulls everybody out of the exploding house and saves everybody, including the fish in the fish tank.
Yeah.
That was yeah.
That was very entertaining.
That was the most entertaining scene in the entire movie. I would have been quite happy if the entire movie was just him doing that sort of stuff.
The movie should just be about him.
It should be. He's the best character.
Just a comedy movie starring Quicksilver would be great.
Just like running around and going, there you go. Move that around. Now you're punching yourself in the face.
Yeah.
A movie about Quicksilver running around and solving crime would be the best thing ever.
Yeah, it would be. Following on from that, everybody important gets captured by Colonel Stryker.
Yes, played by Stifler.
What?
Oh, Stifler.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't. I looked in the credits.
Well, who was it then?
I don't remember, but it wasn't Sean William Scott.
I'm sure it was.
I'm sure it was not.
Well, let's look it up.
Okay, well, you look it up. I'll tell
You
the people
keep
what
faffing
happened.
about.
So they go to his secret military facility in a cliffside. And...
The Weapon X
Yep.
facility.
And while they're there, Nightcrawler, Jean Grey, and Scott, who are loose and are being hidden by Jean's powers, are trying to rescue the grown-ups, who are being held in another advanced military Faraday cage. And while looking for a generator to deactivate the power, they stumble across a cage inside which is held...
Wolverine. Or Weapon X, as he's known.
Yeah.
You are absolutely right, by the way.
What's his name?
It is Josh Hellman.
Yeah.
Who, he was in Mad Max Fury Road. And Jack Reacher.
Who was he in Mad Max?
I don't know. That's not important right now, Russell.
Okay, I'm curious. I'll look it up later.
But he does look remarkably like Stifler. In my mind.
I'll take your word for it.
Yep. Whatever.
Wolverine goes on a rampage. And my favourite bit in the movie, as well as the Quicksilver bit, was when they open his cage. Mm-hmm. And all they're doing is like sliding a pin out of a lock.
A pretty heavy pin.
Yeah, a pretty heavy pin out of a lock. But there is an alarm that goes off throughout the entire facility.
Like everybody's like... They got all these mutants running around and causing havoc, and they're like, "Oh, we got to lock down the system. Like we got X-Men running around the place." And then like that's fine. And everybody's just like, "Nah, whatever. They're just a bunch of kids."
Yeah.
And then like the thing locks up and Wolverine gets out, and everybody loses their shit. Yeah. They're like, "Fucking Weapon X is loose," and everybody's like, "Holy fuck!"
And Wolverine just murders everybody he comes across.
Yeah.
And this entertaining scene when. Colonel Stryker is like, "Oh, I'll be right back." He jumps in a helicopter and he gets away.
Gets the fuck out of there, yeah. Because, And then, the younger X-Men of Nightcrawler, Cyclops, and Jean Grey.
Let's just call them the Teen Mutants.
You're about to say the Teen Titans, weren't you?
Yeah.
No, the young X-Men, they run into Weapon X as he's found an exit point and he's about to run off into the snow. Mm-hmm. And there's a moment where Jean Grey removes his gear and reaches into his mind and unlocks a couple of memories for him. So he's got something to go off. Like his name and Logan. Calls himself Logan.
It was a little creepy.
She's quite young.
Yeah. And knowing from the previous movies and other media that those two do have a romantic relationship.
But then again, it just makes no sense. Because later on, Wolverine shows up in the first X-Men movie, and they're all like, "Who's this guy?"
Yeah.
Who's this chap? Don't know who this guy is. Never met him before. But they were like the ones who released him.
Just don't question it, man.
It's so annoying.
Timeline.
But it doesn't cotton. Because if in the original timeline, they weren't the ones who released him.
That's right.
How did he get out? How did he get released?
Somebody else did.
It's annoying me.
The Blob did in that timeline. He didn't kill the Blob.
Fuck it. This timeline is a hot mess of shit and I hate it.
Okay.
But ignoring that.
So, did you like the Wolverine cameo?
He seems to just cameo in pretty much every previous X-Men movie.
I'm sure he still gets like $20 million per.
He was in X-Men First Class. Because they were looking for mutants, and he popped up on Cerebro.
The scene was great.
It was a great scene. Where they go in, Magneto and the Professor go in and it's like, "Have you?" And he's like, "Fuck off." They're like, "Whoa, all right, no worries, buddy." Even though Magneto here could fucking tear you apart whenever he wanted to, we'll back off.
But he wouldn't.
He wouldn't.
He was trying to recruit him.
He was trying to be good at that point.
He obviously had a leading role in Days of Future Past.
Correct.
And then he just sort of has the one scene here.
But again, that doesn't make any sense. Because that's...
Stop questioning it.
No, because that's part of this revised timeline.
Yeah.
Because, like, at that point, he doesn't have his metal claws. Because it's before he was part of the Weapon X project.
Yeah.
So
at the end of Days of Future Past, Magneto impales him with rebar and sinks him to the bottom of the ocean. And Colonel Stryker...
retrieves him.
And that's the last we see of Wolverine.
But I feel like... That was like 20 years have gone past since that point.
It was like 10.
Was it 10 or 20?
Well, that one was in the 70s. This one's in the 80s.
All right, yeah.
So
10 years doesn't seem like a long enough time for them to figure out how to mold adamantium to his skeleton and completely destroy him mentally and reprogram him and turn him into a beast mode.
Technology, or maybe they used the Force.
I don't know. The timeline just bugs me. And all right, I'll still bring the timeline.
I've had like 10 minutes of timeline.
All right, fine.
Whinging.
I don't know. It's not internally consistent, and it makes me feel like they're just sort of making these movies and they don't care about them, which aggravates me.
Well, yeah, this movie is certainly a mess. So the only other thing to follow that after the goodies escape, then Jean Grey says, "I know where Charles is. Let's go and rescue him from
because
Apocalypse."
Apocalypse has coerced him into projecting a message to every brain on the planet.
Yeah, because Apocalypse has realized, as all X-Men villains do, that Cerebro is the ultimate weapon on Earth.
Well, he gives you like the ability to connect and turn off every brain on the planet if you really want to.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
he wants to leave his current body.
Yes.
And then go into
Charles's
powers, yes.
Because
he doesn't have any psychic abilities.
Yeah, the only way that he's been taken down before is by betrayal.
Yes.
And if he can control everyone's minds, then
that's not going to happen again.
Can betray him.
Correct.
So that part makes sense.
Yes,
that else does.
Yeah. I wonder if he goes into Charles's body, whether he would be paralyzed or not. And no, he'd have the healing factor at that point, so he'd be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense. Because if he inhabits a body and then leaves it, he takes that power with him.
Yes.
Is the way it works, yes.
So we have a montage of Magneto destroying every major landmark in the world.
Probably killing millions and millions of people in the process.
Yeah, there's definitely hundreds of thousands of casualties at least.
I mean, what was in the 80s, what was like the global population? Probably like 4 or 5 billion?
Or at least 5 billion.
5 billion?
Yeah.
He would have killed millions of people.
Yeah.
Destroying, he just like rips the whole planet apart and is fucking around with the whole...
We see like Sydney and New York and stuff getting destroyed.
Was the Sydney Opera House around in 83?
Yeah, of course it was.
Is it? I don't know when it was built.
Yeah, ages ago.
Alright, fair enough. I just feel like I remember it being built.
Maybe it's like...
I don't know, I'm talking nonsense.
Genetic memory. Like
Maybe.
Assassin's Creed.
Maybe.
Apocalypse is trying to steal Charles's body while Magneto is destroying the world, and the other guys are acting as mini bosses.
They're guarding his body because it seems like the transferal process is one of the only points where he can't defend himself.
Yes, because he sort of falls asleep.
Yes. So that's when he's at his most vulnerable, which is why he has the X-Men.
Yeah.
The Four Horsemen.
The X-Men beat the Four Horsemen and...
quite handily.
Retrieve Charles. Apocalypse wakes up and is very angry and comes out for the final showdown.
Yes.
Which mostly involves everybody throwing loads of shit at him for like 5 minutes.
What always confused me is, and I can't claim knowledge of the comic books in this, is that when he jacks people into like being his Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, he turns them evil. He turns them to be like, oh, the only thing that matters is Apocalypse and his way of things.
Yeah, like his Egyptian Four Horsemen were like
fanatics.
Loyal to the last. They sacrificed their own lives to him.
And there's like no aspect of corruption. He just seems to like convince people to just be his horseman. Yeah. He's like, come on, it'll be fun. I'll give you more power. And they're like, more power? Of course I'll betray humanity.
Yeah.
There's like no aspect of him going, all right, now you're under my control. It's just like, oh, you want to destroy stuff? Come on, let's go destroy stuff.
At least with 3 of them, well, 2 of them, certainly, Angel and Magneto, have reason to resent humanity.
Yes.
And Storm kind of does, because she's a street rat.
Correct.
She doesn't
but like, if any of them have actually been taken over by Apocalypse and his mental powers, it would be Angel.
Yeah.
Because he's just like a mindless killing machine.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
And Psylocke It's that motivation. It really bugged me.
Yeah, she doesn't. And she just never shows up again.
I'll kill everybody in the world. Why not? Sounds like fun.
After she has her whips on Beast.
Yeah.
And she's like thrown away by someone, I can't remember who. She's just never really seen again.
Well, you do see her briefly. After
Yes.
Apocalypse is defeated, she sort of like goes, humph, and runs off.
Yeah. To like fire in front of her, which sort of like indicates that she's still evil or something. Did you pick up on that visual clue?
No, but from her expression, I saw that she was upset that Apocalypse was defeated.
Yes. Because
I don't understand why. I don't understand why you would bring this character back.
It seems like it could be one of two things. Because she's psychic, and she's the way she left was she was like there was fire in front of the screen, and she was behind it and all that sort of stuff, and she was upset and angry. There's two things. Either it means she's evil now, and she's going to go do evil stuff. She's going to possibly be a future villain of some variety. Or as she is a partial psychic, she might have taken on some of the Phoenix Force into her, and that's what the flames could have represented. But I don't know. That's just me second-guessing stuff.
That's an interesting theory.
But yeah. The only other time we see her, in theory, was when she is called over to kill someone that Apocalypse is... Quicksilver. In the third greatest scene of the movie, where they're all away and Apocalypse is like running around going, where are you, Charles? I'm gonna fuck you up.
Yeah.
Give yourself up or we'll fucking wreck this place.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Quicksilver just shows up and starts kicking the shit out of Apocalypse because he's so fast, and it just involves him like punching him in the air and then like running around behind him, repositioning him and punching him again.
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff. At which point, he gets trapped.
It was weird because Apocalypse just sort of kind of decided, now I am as fast as you.
It wasn't really that. I'm assuming he was just... Because one of Apocalypse's main abilities seemed to be just the ability to rearrange molecules into whatever he wants.
Well, that's another thing that bothered me. We'll get onto that in a second.
Okay.
What were you going to say?
He traps one of his feet.
Yes.
Which is like the only way to stop Quicksilver, essentially, is to take away his ability to move.
Yeah.
And then breaks one of his legs and calls out Psylocke to cut his head off.
Yeah.
As one of the Four Horsemen, which he has at least a moderate link to either via his imbuing of power or mental connections or something like that. At which point Psylocke comes out and then proceeds to slit his throat.
Yeah.
Apocalypse's throat, because it's Mystique in disguise.
Yeah.
Which didn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, he should have known that it wasn't one of his Four Horsemen, because he has a connection to them of some variety.
Plus, why did she think that would hurt
I
him?
don't think anybody knew he had a healing factor up to that point.
Well,
It was never really shown.
That bothered me about his powers was that he can literally turn people to dust by thinking about it.
I don't think he can turn people to dust. He can, like, trap them in the earth and stuff like that.
No, I saw him, like, dissolve people.
When?
Like those guys at the start. He, like, decapitated them by thinking about it.
No, he didn't. He drew some dust and stuff off the wall and used that to chop their heads off.
Well, that's just as good.
He doesn't... At no point does he explode flesh or anything like that.
No, I remember in the steel mill.
No, he trapped him in the earth. Trapped him in the ground. He doesn't disintegrate them.
Are you sure?
I'm 100% sure. Because they're trapped in the ground and their arms and stuff that are sticking out of the ground is like twitching.
Okay.
Yeah.
To me, it seemed like he had disintegrated them.
He had
was just like an arm and a leg left.
I promise you, he didn't. Yeah, he traps people in surfaces and stuff. He seems to be able to control inanimate matter, if I had to guess what his power is.
Okay.
So yeah, he uses that to like rearrange molecules and erect giant buildings and all that sort of stuff. But yeah.
Okay.
And then him and Professor X get into sort of like a mental battle because they're sort of like connected.
Visualized as a fist fight.
It's visualized as
all battles are fist fights.
All battles are fist fights.
Yeah.
It's a good visual representation of like a mental battle, I guess.
Yeah.
Like the stronger someone was, the bigger they got, and they were like mentally beating them down, all that sort of stuff, wearing them out. And then, quite predictably, as soon as I realized that a young Jean Grey was in this movie, Professor realizes that Jean Grey, as the extraordinarily powerful psychic that she is, and telekinetic that she is, he realizes that she's the one that can stop him.
Yeah.
And so she goes, "Oh yes, I can now."
Yeah.
And she brings forth at least a small aspect of the Phoenix Force, which
she
is
goes
and like burns him away, and
with force.
Burns him away with force. Well, what happens was that she sort of gets rid of his shield that he's using because, predictably, at this point, Magneto has...
Magneto's done a face turn.
He's done a face turn, yeah, and realized that, it was Charles I was meant to be friends with all along.
Yeah.
Even though I'm fucking so indecisive as bullshit. And has, like, just throwing metal at him, and he's got a force field up that is just disintegrating it. But she knocks his force field down, and gets rid of his armor with her mental fire powers. At which point, Magneto skewers him with all sorts of bits of metal.
Yeah.
And Cyclops is like blasting him with his force vision. And he's about to teleport away, and then Storm does a face turn.
Yeah, and shoots him with lightning.
Which somehow negates his transportational abilities. Because, apparently electricity can do that in this movie.
Electricity is so overpowered.
At which point...
Thomas Edison would be like the earliest X-Men.
Well, Nikola Tesla would be, not Thomas Edison.
Well, they were around the same time.
You know, Thomas Edison can suck a dick. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
He was a cunt.
Okay.
Anyway, and so the Phoenix Fire burns him away to nothingness. Overpowers his healing ability.
Yep.
And turns him into poof. Gone, destroyed dust.
Yep.
Which traditionally would then leave you with, well, fuck. Well, now we've got Phoenix Force to deal with.
Yeah.
Like another Omega level, power level that we have to deal with. But yeah, so.
But they just seemed to be fine with it.
She was just like, nah, don't worry about it. I'm back to normal now.
Yeah.
Even though traditionally, even in the movies, every time she brings out the Phoenix Force, it corrupts her and takes her over, and then she, then fucks everything up.
Yeah.
Because the Phoenix Force is the sort of this cosmic entity that is like all the, like a force of regeneration in the universe, but it has to destroy things in order to create new life and all that sort of stuff. So that's a whole other thing.
Actually, I have a question about power levels.
Go for it. I'm by no means an expert, but yeah.
So in the Marvel Universe, you got your big baddies like Galactus and Thanos.
Cosmic entities, yeah.
How do those guys stack up against Phoenix Force and Apocalypse and people like that?
They're like cosmic entities, which means they are of equal power to the Phoenix Force itself.
Right.
Yes. But just because Jean Grey is imbued with the Phoenix Force doesn't mean she has the same level of power as them.
Right, okay.
She has like the limits that she herself can sort of like contain, and like her physical form can contain and expunge.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
But I don't know. Galactus himself is like a force of nature. So he's like on par with the Phoenix Force.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that she is an Omega level mutant.
Right.
Which in the narrative means that there is no theoretical limits to her powers when she's the Phoenix.
So she's like Jin Kazama in Tekken 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but okay. But yeah, she's always been one of the only ones who can ever take out Apocalypse. Because he's also an Omega level.
Okay.
Like there's no limits to his power. So it's like you've got to fight fire with fire in this case.
Well, before we get on to final thoughts.
Sure.
This movie has done what many other X-Men films have done before. And
not made a lot of sense.
Well, that too. But also almost introduced Jubilee and then not.
Yes, it's true.
So there's a girl who's obviously Jubilee.
Clearly Jubilee,
who's
yes.
never introduced, never uses her powers.
No, she's just around.
Yeah.
She's around at the end of the movie as well.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, Magneto was instrumental in taking down Apocalypse? that we barely knew as the world at large barely knew about?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then don't worry. He's fine.
Yeah, the ending was so dumb.
The ending was so dumb. Because Apocalypse is only ever really done any damage to Cairo.
Yeah.
That was where he was 90% of his time was spent. And the only thing he did, which there's no confirmation of anywhere, was send all of the world's nuclear weapons into space.
Which seems like a good thing.
Which seems like a good thing.
As long as you don't live in space.
As long as you don't live in space.
Yeah.
Or they don't fall back
out
to
of
Earth.
orbit
Fall out of
and
orbit
burn
and
up.
back into Earth.
Spread radioactive material all over.
Yes. And the only other thing to the world at large that he did was, Apocalypse himself did, was send out a message saying, I'm gonna fuck you up.
Yeah.
And then even at the end of that, it was like those who have power, and it was supposed to be like kneel or die or whatever Apocalypse wanted to say. But Professor X changed it to protect those who don't have power.
Yeah.
So to the world at large, he was just a creepy voice.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Magneto was the one who did the global damage.
Yeah, yeah.
And
trillions of dollars of damage. And
trillions.
Hundreds of thousands of deaths.
Yes, God, at least. And then everybody's like, oh, it's been reported that he helped stop Apocalypse. All is forgiven.
Yeah.
It's
I
real.
guess they could use his help in the rebuilding effort.
Yes, yeah. Maybe that's where he went when he buggered off after he rebuilt the mansion.
Imagine he went to work for some like mining corporation extracting iron ore out of the ground.
I don't know why he has to work at all.
Oh yeah,
He's got magnet powers. He can just pull precious metals out of the ground.
that's true.
Anyway, so yeah, final thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, did you like the movie?
It was visually very impressive.
I found it visually exhausting.
It was it was very busy.
I feel like if I was one of those four horsemen, and I was there and Apocalypse had just built this giant pyramid and Magneto was hovering in the sky and summoning all of the metal in the world, I would have just like passed out from the overstimulation.
I'd be like, oh man, this is way too busy for me.
I can't handle this. I need to have a
It's
lie
never
down.
even like shown why Magneto is whipping all this metal around. He's not really doing anything with it.
I think he's just bringing it out of
He's pulling it
elsewhere.
out and like using it to destroy places.
Yeah.
But why? Why is he doing it right next to the pyramid?
I don't know.
It was never really.
And what happened afterwards? Is it just this giant pile of scrap metal?
Did he
in
just
Cairo?
stop doing it and all of a sudden all of it fell to the ground?
I guess so. I mean, everyone in Cairo is probably dead already.
It's true. Yeah, God, there would be hundreds of thousands of people there dead. He didn't seem to show any remorse for that either.
No, nobody showed any remorse in this movie.
Anyway, visually overstimulating, but impressive. Plot-wise, very confusing.
Yeah, I gave up on the plot about 10 minutes in.
I don't think I like this movie that much. Like, if I hadn't sat down and, like, gone over it here with you, then maybe I would have been like, no, yeah, it's alright. It was fun to look at.
Yeah.
But now I've sat down and sort of pulled it apart a bit. I've come to the conclusion that I don't think I like this movie very much.
Well, people sometimes try and say, oh, this movie is just a popcorn movie or it's just a dumb blockbuster
Yes.
and you shouldn't think too hard about it. But I think too hard about everything.
It's true, yeah. You are a serious overthinker.
And you can do movies like this better. Like
You can do it quite well.
the Avengers, the first Avengers movie.
First Avengers, very good.
Yeah.
Deadpool movie, very good.
Yeah.
And that was a popcorn movie. There wasn't a huge, like, serious plot there.
Yeah, well, the reason I went for Avengers is because it has a similar sort of... It's all the same beats, where they, like, assemble their team, and then there's, like, a big thing in the sky raining shit down, and they have to go and fight it.
Even the first X-Men movie did a appreciable job of getting the team together and then fighting the big bad guy.
Yeah.
Which was Magneto at that point.
Good old Magneto.
Good old Magneto. You really love Magneto.
He's great.
Does it bother you
He
that
wasn't
they're...
so great in this movie.
Yeah, does it bother you that they're really sort of shitting over him?
Well, I'm not that familiar with his, full backstory. So, whatever they do is fine by me.
As long as Michael Fassbender is playing him.
Or Ian McKellen.
Or
He's
Ian
also
McKellen,
good.
yes.
But, yeah, I didn't like his storyline so much in this movie.
Yeah. They like really
just
tried
seemed to be like, well, my daughter's dead. I better kill the whole world. Well,
instead of just
that's a kind of an overreaction.
And at the end of the movie, he's just like, "Nah, I'm a happy chappy now."
Yeah, he was like fine after that. Well,
that
my
sort of
family's
thing,
dead
like
and I've killed literally millions of people.
That's
Yeah.
that sort of thing would
Let's
be
have
like
some fun banter, Charles.
horrible post-traumatic stress and like severe depression. He saw his wife and daughter killed.
Yeah.
And there's just there's like, this is a movie of bad stuff happens. There is no after effects of bad stuff happening.
Yeah.
There is no traumatic after effects. Everybody's fun and happy and don't worry about it.
Like, thinking back on the 3 films in this trilogy, and Jean Grey actually lampshaded it at one point where she said, "Oh, everyone knows the 3rd movie is always the worst after they come out of Return of the Jedi."
That's true, yes.
Yeah. I think, and it may just be because I haven't watched it that recently, but I think First Class might be my favourite of the 3.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it just sort of embraced being a silly movie.
Do you want to know what my favourite X-Men movie was?
Sure.
The first one.
Yeah, no, that out of the whole lot, that was my favourite as well.
The first and second movies.
First and second
X
movie.
and X2, yeah.
But out of First Class, Days of Future Past, and Apocalypse, I think First Class is my favourite.
Yeah, because
it was just happy being a silly movie.
a fun X-Men movie, yeah.
Whereas this had so much destruction and stuff going on.
The plot and timeline and characters are so convoluted and mixed up and pulled apart, and motivations are all over the place.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense at this point.
Yeah.
And I am really curious as to whether they're going to either go, you know what, we fucked this up, let's start over from scratch again, or what, I don't know.
I think if it makes a lot of money, they'll go, nobody gives a shit about plot or characterization, we'll just keep making shit fly around.
And the sad thing is, it is going to make bank.
Yeah, it probably is.
It will. Days of Future Past wasn't that great, and it made money.
Yeah.
Hand over fist.
I feel like people are going to get sick of these at some point now.
Maybe. We are getting to the point of oversaturation, I think, with these superhero movies.
Which is why I like that Civil War put a new spin on things.
They did, yes. Because this actually really has similar pages to the comic books. Because what eventually happens is that in comic books, so many different writers and so many different artists and so many different stories happen that eventually it gets to the point where everything is so spiderweb together and it just doesn't make any more sense, and it's so complicated. And okay, you want to do this with this character, you can't, because over here they've done something else that would make that pointless. And then that person goes like, oh, I'm just going to do it anyway. And it doesn't make any sense with, like, in relation to other stuff. So every superhero character does, like, has different reactions to the same situation over and over again. And eventually they go like, you know what? This shit is just a mess. Let's wipe it clean.
Is that when you
and then they
Scarlet
do
Witch to hit the reset button?
Yeah, then they hit the reset button, everything goes back to, okay, now there's just this.
Yeah.
The classic one was Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is when they took all the multiple different realities of all the different worlds that all the different DC superheroes was. Because they were never, at the very early stages, they were all separate worlds. They were never all, and then they were just like, all right, there's like 50,000 worlds. All right. Now there's one world and everybody's on it.
Yeah.
You know, and eventually now, since they've done that, now the multiverse is back and there's like all these different nonsense things.
The one I was thinking of was the House of M.
Yes, yeah. Where Scarlet Witch goes, no more mutants, and then fucks everything over. But that does, yeah. And then there's, then they do like the Ultimate Universe, which is a completely different storyline where everything starts from one point instead of like, Captain America was made in the 1950s, and then Spider-Man was made in the 1960s or whatever, and then everything sort of... Anyway, that's not important right now. No. I feel like we need to wipe the slate clean at this point, but they're not going to.
Well, I feel like they kind of tried to with Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
They were like, okay, we're going to leave the the first 3 behind, and we're going to carry on with this storyline.
Yeah, Jean Grey is alive, so on and so forth.
Yeah. But then the storyline, like, kind of went off the rails.
It's really fractured apart again. Yeah. All right, come on. We gotta wrap this up.
Well,
final
let's
thoughts.
Put numbers on it.
What do you reckon? Now that we've hashed it out, you said a number in the car on the way back, but now that we've sat down and sort of hashed it out, what do you think?
Well, I said 6. 6 was my first reaction coming out of the movies. And part of me now wants to go down to a 5. I think I'm going to stay at 6, though.
Yeah?
Yeah. There was enjoyable parts, though. It
There
made
are
me
3
laugh
good...
quite a few times.
Everything with Quicksilver and the bit with Wolverine.
What was somebody said fuck at some point.
I can't remember at what point though.
And it was really jarring and hilarious.
Yeah, something happened on screen and then somebody went, fuck.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what.
That was one of my high points as well.
Yes, that's not something that everybody's going to experience, so we can't factor that in. So you're 6. You're sitting on 6.
It could be. You could twist my arm to get a 5 out of it.
Get a 5 out of it. I'm going to go with a 4.
Ooh.
Yeah, it had its good points, but the plot and the character motivation and the character development was just not there.
How many points did it lose because of the Cyclops thing?
At least 2. No. That was just another aspect of the whole them not caring about the franchise and shitting over it, which made me upset. But yeah, so I'm sticking with it. 4 out of 10.
4 out of 10. Okay.
And you are a 6 out of 10. So on average, 5 out of 10.
Just very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
given that they've now defeated Apocalypse,
Yep.
and half the world's been destroyed, where do you think the movie could go? I mean, obviously to the 90s.
Obviously to the 90s. I don't know.
Can they ramp things up?
They could bring in Mr. Sinister, who is like this...
What a silly name.
It is. I can't remember if it's just Mr. or just Sinister. Who is like this immortal sort of guy who captures and experiments on mutants and all that sort of stuff and pulls the strings, puppet master behind the scenes and all that sort of stuff. But other than that, they could bring Cable in and have like future stuff affect the past stuff, which will have an effect on the present stuff.
Is Deadpool a Fox movie?
Yeah, he's part of the X-Men universe.
So Cable
could be in both. Yes.
Sort of announced.
Cable is actually Scott Summers' son.
Yeah.
From the future.
So does he have the same force powers?
No, he's got like telekinetic powers.
Oh, okay. Is he Jean Grey's son as well?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
I believe so. Don't quote me on that.
Right.
But if they wanted to, they could bring in Cable from the future, who has strong ties to Apocalypse, which would then mean that we'd have stuff in the future and then stuff in the present, stuff in the past, which is about the only way that I can think that they could make this even more convoluted and not make any more sense.
They could like send like Wolverine back to fight the dinosaurs.
He's been sent back to fight dinosaurs. Really? In the comic books, yeah. In the Ultimate Universe, he has.
That's amazing.
Anyway, not important.
No.
Let's
wind it up.
Let's hope that this podcast wasn't as convoluted as the actual movie itself.
I feel like it had better motivations for the protagonist.
That's true. And if you've enjoyed this, feel free to... I don't know. We don't release these on a frequent enough schedule that we
subscribe to the podcast.
Subscribe to the podcast, yeah.
You'll get all of our spoiler specials.
That's it.
And while you're waiting for the next one, which we don't know what it's going to be yet, you'll also get our regular podcast.
Yeah, which has appreciable levels of derailment and nonsense chat.
As well as movie and comic book.
As well as movie and comic book chat, yes. Okay, thanks and goodbye.
Have a nice day.
Really got to figure out how to end these ones. Yeah.